So today's chat is with Melanie, and we wanted to have a quick chat about hormones, just navigating women navigating various stages of their lives and having or making use of African herbs to help them with that process. So I'm just going to move my screen. Okay, that way I can see the little points that I wanted to cover off. Okay, so I just wanted to set the framework for what we are doing here today. First, I want to acknowledge that it's Women's History Month, and I suppose this conversation is acknowledging just how powerful and strong and wise the women who walked this path before us were. And I suppose it's a nod to their wisdom, and this is us leaning into or tapping into some of that wisdom. I am not a doctor. I'm just somebody who loves learning and researching and sharing with people what our ancestors knew about their bodies and how to support them and how they supported them with African herbs. So today, Melanie and I are just going to chat about hormones and aging and talk a little bit about how we can help ourselves with knowledge, good food, and community. So I'm really happy that we've been able to make this happen, even though we are running a little bit behind time. And so I'll pass on to Melanie. So Melanie can just introduce herself and then we'll get into it. Are you there, Melanie?
Hi, everyone. I'm here. Yes, we have had some technical difficulties today. I am a functional medicine health coach, and I am super passionate about Indigenous African foods. Yes, so I'm super passionate about Indigenous African food, and I really believe that our heritage and ancestral way of eating is a major key and connection to our holistic well-being. And in regards to hormones, because I know that's sort of the tone of our conversation today,
Yeah.
many African women are told that their bodies are genetically prone to certain issues like fibroids or PCOS and perimenopause and so many other issues. And I don't entirely believe that we're more susceptible. I just believe that we're sort of metabolically different to the Caucasian sort of genetic makeup.
Okay.
So in a modern food system where you're eating uh, processed foods and foods that maybe don't affect people who have a different genetic makeup to you, then the most obvious solution would actually be returning to what your body recognizes
Mm.
and what would naturally perpetuate that healing
Yeah.
and balance to sort of play out for you and what you're looking for in that process of healing and restoration for yourself.
Okay. So, Melanie,
Um,
I was going to
your
say, let's
hormones
just
aren't,
start at the beginning, yes, and just define exactly
yeah,
what hormones are.
right. So hormones are your body's messengers, right? They control your metabolism, your mood, sleep, weight, the condition of your skin and hair, your menstrual cycle, your fertility. Hormones play a huge role in those areas. And when you're dealing with, let's say, heavy periods or weight gain, that's not random. That's your body communicating that there's something off or out of balance with your hormones, right? So these messengers, these hormones, they're built from nutrients, right? So the building blocks of your hormones are the nutrients that your body has access to. So, you hear a lot of the time, you are what you eat.
Hmm.
And that is essentially true because that is what contributes to the makeup of your hormones. And hormones are made from cholesterol, amino acids, and micronutrients. And they require B vitamins, magnesium, zinc, iron, healthy fats. So essentially, if you are eating a processed food diet, right, then you will be depleted of the essential minerals that your body needs. And this will weaken hormone signaling and hormone building, right? So hormones are these messengers that we need to support through what we eat. So I hope that's sort of like a very basic and clear understanding of what your hormones are.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And so as as we age, right, our hormones, our bodies started to secrete rather different hormones, or different hormones start to come into the forefront, right? So can you maybe just talk about how we might notice something has changed in our, depending on our age bracket, right? So for example, if you're in your 20s or your 30s, what sort of hormonal shifts happen in that particular age gap?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because one thing that I've picked up on is that it's actually quite difficult to say what's going on and give it sort of these sort of brackets of like, oh, 20s to 30s, 40s to 50s, 60s plus, and that sort of thing. Or like, it's difficult, because what you're finding is that a lot of women are seeing symptoms that you'd expect maybe a 40 or 50-year-old to be experiencing, but they're in their 20s and 30s, right? So the idea is that your body will go through these sort of changes that are to be expected um, from a medical perspective. So, what medicine would say is that your 20s and 30s are sort of like, let's say you're working, it's sort of high stress, elevated cortisol,
Yeah.
and this cortisol might be competing with progesterone, and this can lead to PMS or acne, irregular cycles. A lot of women in this phase might be on birth control, and this suppresses ovulation, which lowers your natural progesterone, and this can affect your mood and libido. So it's that would be sort of a common sort of scenario for a woman in her 20s and 30s. And then 40s is well known for sort of perimenopause, sort of the roller coaster of hormonal changes. And this isn't menopause. This is just the fluctuation of the estrogen. Um, and, symptoms might be hair thinning, weight gain around sort of the belly area, sleep disruption. And in this phase, what's happening is progesterone is essentially declining, right? And then estrogen becomes dominant and unpredictable during this perimenopause phase. And your blood sugar sensitivity increases and your stress tolerance decreases. So, estrogen dominance, however, just to touch on this, is a general issue in every stage.
Yeah.
And that is because of sort of the things that we're exposed to in our environment, microplastics and toxins and toxic beauty products, so the lotions and skincare products. So this can essentially create a balance of estrogen dominance for most women. Even women in their teens have been found to have estrogen dominance. So it is something that is noticeable in this perimenopause phase. However, estrogen dominance is just an overall challenge at this point in time, and it is tied to an increase in certain kinds of cancers as well, such as breast cancer and a plethora of other health issues as well. And then again, as you carry on further ahead into menopause, now this is usually what people would say is maybe over 50s. And this is like your new hormonal baseline. And estrogen and progesterone are now just consistently low. And this is now your sort of stereotypical hot flashes, brain fog, um, vaginal dryness, and sort of low libido type of, thing. So yeah, those are sort of what people would sort of characterize as the stages. And just to touch on the 20s and 30s, this is where women are considered, specifically the 20s, is where women are considered to be the most fertile. And what you're finding in the 20s and 30s now in this day and age is, there's a lot of women who are being diagnosed with all sorts of gynecological issues. And I mean, if you look at just the fertility rates, if you look at the charts that show the figures of how many children are being born into the world, you've seen a drastic decline in those figures and in the statistics that are showing that we are having less children. We are experiencing a lot more in terms of our health and wellness and our fertility. So there's a lot to dig into sort of in that area. And as a fertility coach myself, I do truly believe that the best starting point is usually sort of what's within reach for you in terms of your nutrition, your emotional, mental, and spiritual. And as a certified functional medicine health coach, we do look at that holistically. We look at what emotions you're experiencing, how your relationships are, how your sleep is. If you're working a high stress job, if you're moving your body, and it's not necessarily running marathons every month, but just sort of that gentle flow and right, just taking a few steps each day and sort of taking time to breathe as well and just meditate and pray and just that balance and flow of your day and your life and the areas that you might feel could be lacking for you and working on those areas and spaces to support you. And one thing that I am very, very passionate about, I am not a nutritionist, so none of what I say is sort of medical advice or professional advice from a nutritional perspective. But I do believe that as African women or women of African descent, that our best or most ideal way of eating is ancestrally. And I believe that we've not really seen enough studies come out in regards to our indigenous foods and how we can incorporate those into our diet and the diets of our families more. You do see a lot on the Mediterranean diet. So a lot of nutritionists will prescribe that even for African women. However, I do believe that we need to...
though, on an African continent. So, for example, sorry to cut you off there.
No worries.
The logic of prescribing a Mediterranean diet if you are serving women who perhaps wouldn't be able to afford to buy a bottle of olive oil or eat olives or, food that are recommended like salmon and all of that. Why is there that tendency? Why are people not recognizing that the people that they are serving perhaps don't have access to those foods? What's happening there? Why is there that gap there? Does my question make sense?
Well, yes, that's a very layered question, Kudzai.
Of course, we're layering it on.
Yes, because it's the thing is, if you look at medicine, right, as sort of as just systematically and its foundational principle, it wasn't really designed sort of to serve the African, right? Its foundation is from a Western perspective, and the way the West views medicine and nutrition and health is different to how us as Africans view health and nutrition. And so it's sort of its inception in and of itself is not really in consideration of the African, and what the African needs and how the African eats or lives. So from a medical standpoint, nutrition, I mean, is I don't want to say it's a racist framework, but I would say it just lacks sort of cultural um representation. So Africans
Inclusivity.
are not right, right. Yes, we're not included in studies. We're not included in on a supplement bottle, even representation for us as what our bodies need, what our bodies say, what our bodies are made up of, and how to treat that body needs to be considered. So I would say that we're sort of thrown in, sort of once everything is sort of compiled and done, and it's like it's a broad sort of brush that nutrition has been painted with. So that leaves us out in a sense, and then we have to kind of now take a step back and say, okay, well, if the Mediterranean diet is recommended for everyone, but it's not necessarily what works for us, then what does work for us?
Yeah.
What options do we have? And the more research we do on our own foods, the more we find that they are actually just as good, just as nutritious, or if not more so, even better than a lot of these foods that are acclaimed to be the best diet for everyone in the world. So yeah, I would say just finding our answers on our own and being okay with that, knowing it's not for us, and that's fine. We can sort of create something of our own
Mm.
and sort of communicate this to our community
Yeah.
that we can do this. We can grow our own food. We can, save our own seeds. We can um, encourage our community to rediscover what we've always had and what we've always been told wasn't good enough, but it is actually superior.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. And I'm finding a lot of that too as I start researching more plants and different foods that we have. So, for example, you know how you mentioned at the beginning how um, to make your hormones, you need to have certain nutrients, right, for signaling the magnesium. You also need to have the healthy fat, right, and that sort of stuff. And then when you start to look at, okay, so what African foods do we have that are, that give us healthy fats, right? That's when you start to find that actually our diets have so many food options, really good food options, right? To give us the nutrients that we need. But it's just
Right.
not like nobody's talking about that in their journals or articles, or if they are, it's maybe like a throwaway line, right? And somebody will drop in a one-liner about, oh, by the way, you know, baobab oil could help, right? But it's not like a whole article that's actually talking about the benefits that you could get by using baobab oil, in your diet, right? Or using palm oil. We were talking about palm oil, a couple of
Mm-hmm.
weeks ago, and just how good it is for you, right? Despite what you know people say about it, there's nuance. I think is the word that I'm looking for,
Mm-hmm.
right? When it comes to a lot of this research, and sometimes you really need to have a close look and see if people are actually comparing apples to apples. Like in the research that I looked at, and I was looking at the differences between palm oil and olive oil. You know, what I found was that when people are talking about how olive oil is better for you, they're talking about extra virgin olive oil, right? And extra virgin olive oil has not been through the same refining process that they put palm oil through, right? So unless if it says crude palm oil or red palm oil, the palm oil that they use it as in comparative study, that's been processed, that's been refined. And a lot of the goodness has actually been stripped out of that palm oil before they then hold it up as a comparison or a comparative oil against olive oil, right? And this is when I discovered that actually there is a distinction between extra virgin olive oil and just a bottle that just says olive oil. It's not the same thing. Did you know that?
Right. No. Yeah. No, when it comes to studies, I'm always on the lookout for any manipulation, to sort of skew the final result, because it's almost like it's deliberately done to kind of, when it's comparing it to sort of an African food or herb or, medication that they're, because we do have a lot of indigenous medicine. I don't mean to sort of sidetrack it, but a lot of the studies on our indigenous herbs as well, you'll find that the results tend to sort of not be in favor, or they might, end up being very vague with the results. And so it's unfortunate. So a lot of times we actually end up having to rely on our ancestral understanding and knowledge as opposed to what the science is indicating, because the science might indicate something quite worrying and you're like, oh no, I have to stop eating this thing. But you've not really done your due diligence to sort of dig into how they actually carried out these studies. And that's why I'm always so careful now when I'm doing my research, because it's sort of also spiritually led, and that's why spirituality is a huge part of who we are as Africans, because we're not entirely looking at a piece of paper and going to say, okay, yep, palm oil is out the window because this piece of paper has said that.
Yeah.
We trust in sort of that passing down of wisdom and knowledge and understanding culturally as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. Okay, so I thought we might sort of move on to, I think we've covered, the sort of typical symptoms at like various life stages. Right? Do you want to just talk about like the 5 big hormones that people should know about? I think you mentioned some of them, like estrogen, progesterone. Did you want to just talk about a couple of the others? Just like the 5 big ones that should be on
Yeah,
sort of
sure.
people's radars?
I will say this. You can sort of give people a breakdown of that. Um, I would say I can touch on maybe 2 key things that as African people, we need to sort of have at the forefront of our minds. I don't want to sort of overload people with too much, because sometimes it can get a bit overwhelming when it's like, you have to remember these 5 things. But what I will say is that one thing that people of African descent do need to sort of keep in mind is sort of the blood sugar as the foundation. So for us, we have an issue with sort of those insulin spikes and diabetes and that sort of thing. And blood sugar imbalance can, a lot of the times for us, be the root of the chaotic hormonal issues, right? So modern medicine would say we need to cut carbs, do keto, avoid starches, right? But for us, we have our traditional starches, right? And these starches are actually very high in fiber, right? And you can look at starches such as sorghum, millet, fonio, yams, right? These are high fiber, slow digesting, mineral dense, right? And in comparison to sort of the refined flours and sugars and, processed seed oils. So we have these, and someone might be told, oh no, you're not supposed to eat any starch. You just have to be on a keto diet because, you're having these fluctuations with your blood sugar. And it looks like something like, okay, your blood sugar will spike and then your insulin rises, and then insulin influences your ovarian hormone production, right? So insulin is directly connected to your fertility, right?
Yeah.
And then from this hormone production in the ovaries, this then impacts testosterone and estrogen balance, right? So what you eat directly affects this flow, this sort of crashing and skyrocketing sort of issues that you might be having. So you're trying to sort of level this out, and this leveling out through the food, through the indigenous foods and indigenous starches, and renewing sort of the stores of your micronutrients in your body by eating these indigenous foods. This plays sort of like a multi-purpose role. So food isn't just about being healthy, so to speak, right? And it is about health, and it is about being healthy and that vitality. But it's when you're facing a challenge in your body, it's about using the food as sort of a mechanism of repair, right? A mechanism of renewal. Food is connection. It's medicine, right? Food is a lot more than just satiation, right? And how you choose the foods and the foods that you choose matter immensely. It matters so much what you choose. And a lot of the time we're in countries or living lives where we just don't have the time to prepare traditional meals because they take time to prepare. But you need to sort of reestablish this connection, or we don't have access. Some people might say, oh, I don't have access to African foods in the country that I'm in. But it's making that extra effort sort of to access these foods, to source these foods for your health and for the health of your family. So blood sugar is a major one for us as people of African descent. So essentially insulin is one of those things that you do want to keep an eye out on. And you also want to tailor your diet to you culturally as someone who might be susceptible to blood sugar imbalance, right? And that is usually at the root, right? It's usually at the root. And the only way to sort of level this out in terms of your hormones, because insulin is sort of this thing that we think of like estrogen and progesterone and testosterone, and we're looking at all these things, but insulin is usually the first thing that we kind of want to level out, and it sort of acts as like a rollover effect into the other hormones that might be out of balance. So I would say that would be the first thing, and this is sort of also tailored to women who are sort of looking at their fertility, because my expertise is usually in the area of sort of that fertility and well-being for women. So I can't really advise too much for men. And then the second thing after blood sugar and insulin, I would say to keep in mind for us as women of African descent, yes, is estrogen and gut health. So if you look at fibroids and heavy periods, with estrogen, it's not just about how much you make, but it's also about how you eliminate it, right?
What do you mean?
So you have these detox pathways, right? So, okay, so I can explain the three phases. You've got estrogen production in the body, and then this is usually eliminated through the liver and through the gut. You've got liver detoxification and you've got gut elimination. Right? But the issue with the modern food system is we're not eating enough fiber.
Just give me a second, my bad.
So low fiber and a sluggish gut will result in estrogen recirculation in the body. No worries.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. So instead of the fiber, your body using the fiber in your gut to flush out that estrogen just stays in there. Is that what you're saying?
Right. It just recirculates through the body.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So you've got this recirculating estrogen and it's increasing in amount. And as I mentioned earlier, Estrogen dominance is a huge issue at the moment for women at all phases. Whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s, this estrogen dominance is a challenge, right? And one of the ways that ancestral foods can support this is through this fiber intake, because our traditional diet is very high in fiber, right? We've got our greens, our baobab, right? Our amaranth and our bitter leaf. We've got our spider greens. We've got bitter greens. There's just so much greens. Like the variety of greens in Africa is just, it's crazy. We've got okra. We've got, as I mentioned earlier, sorghum, millet. We've got just a whole bunch of beans that are excellent, because beans are a good source of protein, but they've also got that fiber, right? And I know a lot of people are talking about carnivore diet and, but fiber is a major, major
Fiber
requirement
is
for us as
huge.
people.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. For
I was
us, we need fiber.
like, I was looking at
Oh.
I can't remember. Oh, there was this trend that popped up on my Google alerts for how people are fiber maxing. It's like a TikTok phrase now, fiber maxing their food. And people were looking at ways to increase the fiber in their food. So I'm thinking to myself, well, what is this fiber maxing? What's everybody talking about? That's what got me to start looking into fiber and why fiber is so important in our diet just generally, and the knock-on effects that come about when
Mhm.
you don't have enough fiber in your diet. So like what you're saying about how your estrogen is just being recycled, right? Instead of being flushed out.
Right.
Mm.
Right. And, um, even our fermented foods, we've traditionally always fermented a lot of our cereals and grains and even greens. We have dishes where the greens as well are fermented, and um, porridges and milk, fermented milk as
Yeah.
well. So you might even find that this diversity in the gut microbiome has always been traditionally supported by the way we ferment our food, but now with the modern diet, we're not eating close to enough of the amount of fermented food that we did in the past. And we're seeing that. We're seeing the difference in our health, in our gut microbiome and gut health, and permeability in the gut, which also leads to autoimmune, because a lot of autoimmune is actually tied to gut permeability.
So gut permeability,
And
is that
yes,
is that leaky gut? Is that what they mean by leaky gut?
yes, yes. That's what they mean by leaky gut, because in the Western, you see, our diet has traditionally been naturally gluten free, right? We've naturally just always eaten cereals and grains and beans and veggies and fruits that don't have gluten in them. And I'm not saying gluten is bad. I'm just saying we've just naturally, in the past, eaten a gluten free diet, right? But with the mass production of wheat globally, everyone's now eating wheat, right? We're all eating wheat. We're all eating processed seed oils, and gluten has been connected to that leaky gut, where the gut barrier, the barriers in the intestines are sort of wider than they should be, and that allows for things that are undesirable to pass
Pass
through
through.
that barrier and enter into your bloodstream.
When we were growing up, speaking of like leaky gut, when we were growing up, I remember um, when my mom was making dinner, she'd always cook, like, for example, if she's making pasta for us, she would always cook something else for my dad because my dad just insisted that he didn't want to
Mm.
eat pasta. And when you asked him, he would say, that that pasta makes you gassy. He was like, pasta just makes you
Mm.
gassy. And I think as a child, I just never understood that. And I was like, what do you mean?
Right.
Um, pasta makes you right? But like I think his gut was particularly sensitive to things like the gluten. from the past. Like my dad, I don't think I've actually ever seen my dad eating pasta at all. It's just something
That's so interesting. I think
yeah,
your
it's just
dad
something
is
he just
onto
refuses.
something.
He just refuses to eat it. Mm.
And you know what's interesting? When you say he was sensitive to it, it brings up something for me as well, because when I've not eaten seed oils for a while, right? And I'm just cooking with coconut oil, palm oil, ghee, just sort of, stable fats and oils. And then I make something sort of like a high heat meal. Like we eat a lot of chapati here in
Mm.
Kenya.
Yeah.
And I use sunflower oil because it kind of keeps the chapatis a bit moist. And yes, health coaches are not perfect. We do once in a while make things that are not ideal
Yeah.
on in our book rather. Um, but when I do eat it, I do get heartburn. So I am more sensitive when I'm eating sort of a clean diet and I'm sort of in the flow of that. And then, so it just makes me wonder, like maybe your dad was sort of in the flow of his natural way of eating. And when he's tried pasta, maybe that's sort of thrown things off. But for those people who maybe eat it consistently, your body sort of starts to block the signals and the effects of what it's actually doing in the body. So your body adjusts, your body is smart. It stops sending out these signals of gas and heartburn and whatnot because you're consistently eating it every day, and your body's just naturally going to protect itself and not throw out these symptoms all the time. They
And
will
so what
stop eventually,
it
but
just
that doesn't mean
manifests as something
that you're
else, other conditions down the track.
right, right. Yeah,
Wow, that's big.
yeah.
Yeah. I remember speaking to my friend, well, she was a colleague, um, and she's Asian, and she was talking about how they don't like a large part of the Asian population doesn't have um, that bacteria to be able to digest lactose, right? So she's like, a large part of the
Yeah.
population is actually lactose tolerant. But because everybody loves an ice cream and all these things that you make out of cow's milk, she's like, she she has always just eaten ice cream, even though it would make her tummy upset for years and years and years and years and years. And then she's like, something happened with her when she turned 40. It's like her body was just like, nope, we are not doing this anymore. And she was like,
Mhm.
I can't, not even a drop of milk, no ice creams, no custard. I can't anymore. My body just can't do it anymore. And she was saying that a, a lot of times because of the way the food is marketed, how easily available it is, and how convenient it is, people just end up eating it, right? And just ignoring
Right.
that discomfort and and all of those side effects that they get from eating those particular foods. But she was like, ever since she turned
Mhm.
40, her body just couldn't do it anymore.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, it can only take so much, right?
Yeah.
It can only take so much. And we have to look at our foods as the solution, right? Because we have so many options outside of the dairy and the gluten within, the continent of Africa and the diversity of our food.
Yeah.
There is so much available, so much that we have to explore and sort of find our own way of making something that is as delicious and as satisfying as, as a bread or an ice cream or whatever it is that we feel emotionally connected to. Um,
And I think also,
so we do need to sort of look at that. Yeah.
sorry to cut you off there. I was going to say, and I think
No
also it's
worries.
just as important for people to learn that there are other ways of getting calcium that don't include milk,
Right.
right? Like you can
Right.
get calcium for your bones from your sorghum, right? You can get it from your greens.
Mhm.
We have so many more options available to us to get nutrients, right? To the extent that we actually don't need to keep drinking or eating food that are making us unhealthy because we're afraid that, well, if I don't drink milk, where am I going to get my calcium? Where am I- does it make sense?
Right. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. When you look at superfoods like moringa and we've got indigenous nettles and baobab and there's just so much at our disposal and it's underutilized. So absolutely, we do have plant-based indigenous options for us
Mm,
that you can easily add in, to smoothies and
yes,
oats and porridges and all sorts of things. Yeah.
totally. Absolutely, totally. That's great. Where were we going? I've sort of lost track of where we were up to. How were we doing for time?
Oh,
I know you said you,
well,
yeah.
yeah.
How much time do you have?
I I can share a bit on also sort of stress, and then I think I can close off with just a few practical steps moving forward,
Yeah.
just that might support people. Um, so if we look at sort of our people and just the amount of stress and the lifestyle, and it's not just Africans, it's across the globe, really.
Yes.
Everyone is just dealing with chronic stress.
Mm.
Um, sorry, just a moment.
Well, guys, thanks for being on the chat. Melanie's just had to step aside, but she will be back.
Hi, I'm back.
Okay.
Right, I
What
was
about
just saying
stress?
that stress is, yes, yes. So it's a big issue just across the board at the moment. And the issue with stress is that it does raise your cortisol, right? And this cortisol disruption then affects your thyroid. Again, it affects your insulin as well, estrogen, progesterone. Um, and the fact of the matter is, when you're already disconnected from your ancestral way of eating and living, you're more than likely already depleted in the essential minerals your body needs, right? So stress is only going to aggravate that to a higher degree. And so stress and sort of that disconnection from our food is sort of like a double whammy.
Yeah.
And you do want to kind of tackle that. So I would say the three areas we're looking at is, blood sugar stability and insulin. You're looking at estrogen and gut health. You're looking at cortisol and stress, right? So those would be like the three areas that I would say as people of African descent. We need to kind of keep a handle on these things because knowing the hormones, the hormones that are there is one thing, but understanding why it matters to you is
And
a
how
whole other
they
thing,
interact,
right?
right? And how they interact with each other.
Right. And how your indigenous foods are sort of a free gift to you to handle these things because there's no medication that will out treat a modern diet. Unfortunately, the thing is, there's no pill that you can pop that will just take everything away and fix all your health issues. It has to be sort of this intentional approach to your health and well-being. And again, just sort of these modern prescription of the Mediterranean diet that is culturally not relevant to us is also
Yeah.
another sort of mistake that we keep making. And we kind of need to sort of pause and say no. It's a great, and I'm not taking anything away from that diet for the people that it matters to, but I'm just saying we have something for us too
Yeah.
that is applicable to us and our challenges with health and wellness.
Mm.
Um,
I love
yeah,
that phrase
so
that you use there. It is a free gift to us. I think that's so important.
yeah,
Our food.
yeah, absolutely.
I was
Right. And we need to sort of,
yeah.
no,
Carry on.
go for it.
Okay. I was saying I was doing some research into foods that support healing, right? And one of the points that I kept coming back to again and again and again was the issue of stress and cortisol, right?
Mm,
It doesn't matter,
mhm,
you know, what foods you're eating, right? If you're even if you're getting all the right nutrients into you by eating like a good sort of
mm,
ancestral
mhm,
diet that's
mhm.
diverse and nutrient dense, as long as you are living under stress, right? That cortisol is
Absolutely.
hijacking absolutely everything. It's
It is.
yeah, your cortisol is like the it's like trying to put out a bushfire.
It's called the cortisol seal.
Is that what it's called?
Right.
I like that word.
Yes. So
Cortisol
it's
steel. I think I'm
consistently
gonna
going to
start using
steal.
it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Cortisol. I'm gonna use it because it like just hijacks your
yeah.
system. Nothing else is going to work as long as your
Mhm.
cortisol is so high. And I think also it's linked to
Right. Right.
our survival, right? Your fight or flight, that whole fight or flight response.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So you're finding ways, practical ways that you can sustainably implement in your life
Mm.
to minimize stress.
Yeah.
Because we think that, oh, it's just unhealthy food, but stress is on the same level as that processed meal. You need to start viewing stress as just as bad as not moving your body, sort of having this sedentary lifestyle where you're on the couch, eating junk. You need to view stress in the same way, and that's the thing. We don't view stress as that bad culturally as people, and we need to shift our mindset to start to prioritize self-care and peace and meaningful encounters and
Connection.
moments, and sort of just slowing down. We were never created to live this life that's just so fast paced and just go, go, go all the time. It's not, it's your body, you might be doing it, but your body doesn't recognize it as safe for it. Um, so just understanding that and being gentle with yourself and forgiving yourself for feeling the need to keep up and push yourself further than you should have done, and
Mhm.
yeah, just sort of accepting that you want to make different decisions for yourself moving forward. And you can make these changes. It is possible, it's attainable, and it's good for you. It's a healing journey that's not always easy, but it's definitely achievable.
Yeah.
So
And I think you hit
yeah,
the
I
nail
think
on the head
we
there. I think you said something that's
yeah.
really important there. The importance of forgiving yourself, right? When you slip up and you eat a whole bag of chips. And you know you really shouldn't.
Right.
Because it's like, oh my God, I'm so stressed. Let me just grab something to make me feel good. It's okay, right? Everybody slips up now and again. But I think
Right.
what's important is to recognize that, okay, I've slipped up. I need to make better choices going forwards. And it's okay, right? I think that's the biggest one, right? I think once people learn to forgive themselves, right, they then give themselves permission to make better choices, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And the process of change is actually a cycle. If you look at the what psychology has shown us is that you're not gonna just try and change and then it happens on your first try. It's gonna take several attempts of failing and collecting the information you need, what works, what doesn't work. So sometimes we feel like, oh, I'm not making it, but just that step by step, sort of bit by bit, understanding that I will fall back, I will recycle through the process of change. It's not going to be linear. It is a cycle, and just being patient with yourself and as you said, Kudzai, not beating yourself up about it when you do fall short or make a mistake, or you're finding it harder to maybe, adapt to this new way of living. Um, being taking yourself slowly, and just also knowing that you taking the step to make the changes is the biggest part of it, because there's people who never even awaken to the changes that they need to be making, and that's the unfortunate thing.
It's been really, really good. I think we've done really well for our first little chat. What do you reckon?
I do. I have really enjoyed this. It's been so great to be able to have this conversation today. And I'm hoping to get my tech in order and be on camera for our next one. I will
That's
just
gonna
give a
be really
few.
good. Do we have you for another, like maybe 10 minutes, just so I can go through the questions?
Yeah, I just want to do just a few takeaways.
Oh, can I
Just
get you
so
to
that,
can I just get you to hold just 1 second, if that's okay?
no worries. That's okay. That's fine.
Hey, I'm back. Thanks for that.
Hi. I was just replying to Lemonana 13.
Yeah.
He asked, which are there any medicinal plants that can help to boost testosterone in males or libido? And the two that I know of are Mondia vitae and Kigelia africana.
Yes. I think I sent him a
So
link
those,
to
right, okay.
one of the blog posts that I've written. I don't know if he's still on the line or if he was able to see it. I wrote a blog post a little while ago about citing the
Nice.
top African foods that boost fertility in males, and I'll just pop that in
Oh,
here. Where is? Maybe let me copy the title as well so it makes sense. Top foods.
yeah, we do have world-class herbal solutions on the continent. So we do need to look at those.
Oh, absolutely. Like if you don't look into it, other people do, and then they package it and they sell it to you, right?
Right? It's crazy.
And they just give it a fancy name, and you think, oh, no, this is this fancy. Why can't I paste the title? Popped it in there. Okay. Did you come across any other question?
No, I'm not quite sure on the question.
Yes. Over
But
95% of advertisement promotion is junk food. 100%. Totally right.
right, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, if meds are limited in pregnancy, what evidence-based herbs can help? I do have a few that I do use, like, in terms of advising women to boost fertility.
Mm.
But I don't usually work with herbal remedies during pregnancy.
Yeah, that one's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah,
I've
yeah, that one's quite tricky.
got ingredients. I've got a list of foods that I wrote about. I got 18 nutritious breakfast ideas for pregnancy. Okay, best African foods.
Oh, nice.
That's an article that I wrote a little while ago, and I've just listed
Right.
foods, based on nutrients. So it's not necessarily treating a condition. It is more from the perspective of providing nutrients. So I've got a little table there.
Right.
Actually, let me paste it on to while I talk to it. What is it? Foods for pregnant.
Yeah, I do consult one-on-one in terms of anyone who does want to look at a herbal solution for their health and wellness. But I don't agree with sort of having these shelves stacked with, herbs and whatnot, because people might just have access and buy them, and you don't know what the side effects might be for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's sort of like this journey you go on with people, and it's good to know their medical history and get clearance from their provider before working with anyone and prescribing or advising anything that they should be taking from a herbal perspective.
Yeah.
But I do herbalism, especially indigenous African herbalism, um, because I do believe that we have the medication and the treatments that we need for ourselves. And sometimes you will find certain roots, barks, and leaves are very dense in certain cleansing and detoxification profiles that some people who have eaten a Western diet for so long sometimes do need sort of this jam-packed, full nutrient, medication to sort of restart certain systems in the body and detoxify certain parts of the body and cleanse the blood in certain ways that a pharmaceutical is not capable of doing.
Yeah. And, and I think what was a big sort of learning for me during this whole researching herbs and things, one of the things that always used to surprise me was how one plant can be used for so many things. How does one plant help you with diabetes? How does it also help you with high cholesterol? How does it also help you with digestion? Like, how? Simply because I
Right.
was coming at the perspective of health from a Western perspective, which is very one problem, one solution type.
Right. One dimensional.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if that's the word, but like it's like every symptom has a one corresponding pill, right? And so that's why you end up with
Right.
people who maybe have high blood pressure, right? And then they get given a tablet, but then that tablet makes them, you know, um, bloated, right? And so now they also have to take another tablet so that they can drain the body of that excess fluid. And then they also now have to take other, what is it, supplements, electrolytes, because now it's imbalancing the electrolytes. And, so that's how you get to have people who
Mhm.
wake up and uh, a bunch of pills in the morning, a bunch of pills in the afternoon, and a bunch of pills in the evening, right? Simply because Western medicine tends to
Right.
like
Right.
one problem, one solution, even if that solution creates another problem, right?
Another problem, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
And Western medicine isn't as dynamic. I think the ability of indigenous medicine to be sort of this super smart approach to healing is because of how dynamic it is.
mm,
You're not left with these side effects, and of course that you can get side effects from herbal
yeah,
medicine when it's not in the right dose, and you're not working with the right practitioner. So you do have to be careful with herbs as well. That is
yeah,
true, but the risks are much, 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 much lower than modern medicine wants to admit with a herb, because they've extracted this active ingredient and isolated it.
mhm,
And that's what essentially leaves you with these side effects with the pharmaceuticals, because it's no longer this dynamic plant that can go into your body and rebalance you in the right way, you know? So it's quite interesting. It's something that I truly, for me personally, I subscribe to natural. I believe that what's growing naturally is again a gift from God, and anything that's been tampered with, you need to ask a few questions before administering that into your body, because the reality is man has destroyed a lot of God's creation in the past. So it just seems to be this sort of continued destruction of health, of environment, of, just our world, in its form. And I believe that in order for us as Africans to sort of achieve this sort of good health and balanced health, we have to go back to our practices, which does include traditional medicine and traditional food.
mm. And I think it was a really good thing that you brought up, that you do get side effects from herbs, and I think it's important
Yeah.
to highlight that as well, right? Because you can, like you're saying, you can then put yourself in danger of overdoing it, taking it in the wrong
Right.
doses, right? Which
Hmm.
has its own knock-on effect. And I think also just in saying, like in pointing out the differences between Western medicine and indigenous African medicine. Like indigenous um, African medicine tends to be more holistic, more all encompassing, right? Versus your Western medicine,
Right.
which is very symptom treatment, symptom treatment, symptom treatment, right? I don't know what the word is
Hmm.
for that method of healing, but it definitely has its place, right? Like if I have had an accident and I am bleeding, right? Yes, take me to a Western hospital. I need Western medicine, right? Like I need somebody to give me something to stop the
Right.
bleeding,
Yeah.
to stitch me up and to fix me. And so I think it's more
Yes.
of an emergency type medicine, right? That's where you need that precision, right?
Right.
For childbirth, right? I used epidurals, right? It- for my childbirth, and they worked well simply because the doctor gave me the right amount of um, what is it, epidural in the right place at the right time, all of those things. So precision does have its place in um, in our healing practices, right? But you find that I found that that's one of the key sort of distinctions between Western medicine and traditional healing practices. Like, I'm to come across anybody who has told me that, the traditional healer told them you need to put 2 teaspoons, right? It's usually just put a pinch. Like, how much is a pinch? Like a pinch. And you have a pinch, you put a pinch into your tea when you're going to bed. Why am I putting a pinch in my tea when I'm going to bed? Right? Why can't I have it in the morning? Why can't I just put it in my cold water to drink? Right? Their um their methods of healing are um they're not prescriptive, as in 2 tablespoons of this and two, you know. Have you noticed that when you work with people who come from an indigenous sort of background when it comes to healing?
Yeah, yeah, it's not as regulated as it should be. We do need to come up with a way where we can have a very formal sort of, and I guess in Kenya we do have like a herbal society. I
Mm.
think it's called the Kenya Herbal Society or something like that. And I think you can get registered, but you just have a lot of people practicing who are not registered, and they don't see the point of being registered because they have this knowledge. And then you have other people who are just making money from it, and then they don't really have the knowledge.
Yeah.
So it's a mixed batch, and you really have to go based on recommendation. So for me, there's very few uh traditional herbalists that I know that are actually legitimate and do know what they are saying, and are they have had this information passed down to them uh, through apprenticeship, and actually being hands-on for years and having learned this knowledge tangibly, right? And it's also a gift. In Africa, we look at the gift of healing as a spiritual calling. So the challenge comes in when you're in a society where, capitalism is thriving and people just want to make money, and
Yeah.
it's not your gift. You're just trying to earn a living.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, and you're basically riding on people's naivety, and it's unfortunate that that's the case now. But yeah, so what I do say is always get recommendations from people that you're working with.
Yeah.
Find out what they know, um, and the one person that I advocate, like if anyone is in Kenya and wants to work with a herbal practitioner, is Dr. Jack Givay, and he's amazing. I mean, he's elderly, so I think he's in his 80s or 90s now, and
What's his
he's been doing this pretty much his whole life. Jack Givay.
How do I say
Jack
J
Givay
A
is
C K
Githae.
T H
Yep. And
A
then
E?
Givay, Giae. Yeah. So he's very good. He's reputable. He works with indigenous medicine from the central Kenya region. And he's trustworthy. He's been at this for longer than I've been alive. So yeah. And he's worked with the WHO as well in terms of indigenous knowledge. So yeah, so I can recommend him, but I would say anyone that you're going to work with, just make sure you've got a good recommendation and you've done your research, do your due diligence. It's your body, it's your autonomy. So always just also use your spiritual discernment as far as who you're going to work with and who you're going to trust with your healing journey.
Wow. I think that's powerful. I think that's a good sort of note to end it on. Do you want to just put your contact details into the chat there? If you have like a page or a link where people can book a time to consult with you.
Yeah, sure. I'll add my Instagram and my phone number.
Yeah.
And you can find me there. You can find me here as well on TikTok, Wellness with Mel, and that's Instagram. And then I'll put my phone number. Yeah. So I guess just to summarize, because I do have to go.
Yeah.
I believe that we do need to prioritize our indigenous foods
Yes.
and diet
Yeah.
and medicine, of course, for treatment for those that do need treatment. Because if you're eating an indigenous foods diet, the reality is you're not really supposed to need the medicine because the diet in and of itself is medicinal. So if you look at a true indigenous food diet, it's already medicinal, it's already healing. So the medicine is really just a support that comes in if and when, and rarely in the past would we have needed it, right? But now it's like we all need it all the time because we're so far removed from our way of eating and living.
Yeah.
So yes, so a return to how we eat is key. Number two, that return to how we eat should support your blood sugar stability and your insulin, and that should also support your estrogen and gut health because these foods naturally are high in fiber, are naturally gonna support your microbiome and your gut health. And insulin spikes are avoidable when you're eating this way. And then thirdly, the topic of stress, we need to avoid it as much as we can, living a more simple life and maybe just rethinking our goals and vision for the future and how we want to live sustainably, reconnecting to our land, reconnecting to, because the land again is a key factor in what we grow, the seeds we plant, the foods we eat. It's all connected to our lifestyle. If we're all in the cities and we're all in offices, then no one is planting these indigenous foods. So, we have to reconnect with our land as well. And that reconnection to land supports your stress and your lifestyle, I believe. So I would say this holistic way of approaching health and at the core of it, the centerpiece being a return to who we are as people and reconnecting to that is what I can finish up with for today.
That is fantastic. I love that. I absolutely love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Melanie. And yes,
No
sorry
worries.
about
It's been my pleasure.
about the hiccups in the beginning, but we got through it, and I reckon we've done well. So thanks again for your time. I will let you go so you can enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will get out of my
You too, Kudzai.
and now and I'll have a shower and go to bed.
All right. I know it must be almost midnight for you.
No, it's 9:45. 9:45. So it's
Oh,
Not,
okay.
it's not too bad, but it is past my bedtime.
Not terrible.
Yeah.
I'll take the night shift for our next one.
Okay. No. Then we'll miss a lot of people, you see. That's the problem.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I live in the future. Like it's already Sunday night. It's already 2 hours to Monday for me, right? But everybody else is still
Right.
got the rest
Yes.
of their Sunday to enjoy. So no, this works well.
Okay, that works for me then.
Yeah.
I'm good to do. Um, when is it next? March, April. Yeah, I'm good for April
Okay.
for
That
our
sounds
next
great.
one.
Fantastic. Okay, I'll let you go. Thank you.
All right.
Cheers.
All right.
Bye.
Kudzai, thanks for organizing everything and talk soon. Bye.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. This has been really, really great. This has been my first sort of live chat with an expert. So thanks also for your questions. Um, yeah. And I will be hopping on. I hop on to in TikTok every other day. So if you are on TikTok and you see me on the live, be sure to hop on and say hello. Yes, let's keep eating our indigenous foods, learning about how they support us in our health, managing our hormones, and each phase of our lives. And as we are fortunate enough to get old, right? So let's keep looking after ourselves and learning and getting better. And yeah, till next time.